So your earnings beating estimates in the second quarter despite 12 days of strikes. Are we seeing the light at the end of the tunnel?
No, I think it is a good step. The market was a bit more negative than reality. We have been happily surprised by the development of the unit revenue and the traffic. So, in fact, in spite of the strike, we are beating the consensus, which is a good news. But, of course, we have also to keep in mind that in the real numbers, there is a strike effect. For the quarter, it is 260 million. So, clearly, it is a quite negative and bad impact on the economic performance of the group, so that's a pity. But in spite of that, it is true that we are above consensus, mainly coming from the commercial environment, which is relatively good.
Were the summer bookings impacted by the anxiety of customers because of this spring strike?
No, this is a good question. Of course, frankly, when you will look what we call the forward load factor, which is we look what could be the load factor for the next month. We have published this morning the figures for July, August, September, October, and in fact, we expect load factor above last year. So which is demonstrating that, of course, there is an impact, but which is not so important to compensate for the good commercial performance we had in the second quarter. So there will be an impact, but not too large.
Despite all this trouble, which also cost the job of the former CEO, Mr. Janayak, you're still expecting a positive outlook for the second half. Did you take into account possible new strikes in the second half?
No, of course, when we publish the expectation concerning the forward booking load factor, we don't take into account any assumption concerning strike. And of course, I really hope that finally we will find a solution with unions in Air France in order to stabilize the situation, to be focused on the customers, to be focused on the improvement of the economic performance of the group, which is, I think, the most important. So let us hope that a solution will be found very quickly, that a new governance will be introduced into the group as soon as possible. It is, as you know, the responsibility of the board, of course. The management has not to be involved. And restabilizing the situation of the group is something quite important because we have to think our customers, our performance, and of course the development of the group, which is the most important things.
This new government, so it is the responsibility of the board. Are we going to see a new CEO by September?
Again, this is the responsibility of first what we call the nomination committee, which is a subgroup of board members, and second, the full responsibility of the board. Again, the management has not to be involved, which is perfectly normal. And I am like you, I am expecting any info coming from the board in due time.
But you've been at Air France-KLM for a very long time. Do you support the application of KLM CEO Peter Elbers? Would that be a good choice for Air France-KLM as a group?
Again, I know Peter Elbers quite well. I worked with him already for 13 years. He's a guy extremely qualified. But again, it is a decision of the board, and we really consider that the management has not to take any position on that topics.
But do you think KLM is getting increasingly frustrated with the situation at Air France?
I spent 7 years in Holland working in KLM, so I know the company quite well. I appreciate, of course, the company quite well. I work also many years in Air France. It's clearly a frustration, as it is also a frustration for many people into Air France, to see that their efforts, their plan are partly lost because of the difficulties we had during these first 6 months on the social field. That's a pity. It cost a lot of money, mainly for Air France. It is frustrating for everybody, I think, and also, of course, frustrating for our Dutch colleagues. I totally understand that.
On top of possible new strikes, we got the fuel bill that you expect to increase by 450 million euros. Will you pass on this increased fuel bill to customers by increasing prices?
This is a big question for any airlines, I will say. In what extent are you able to transfer part of the fuel bill to the passengers by increasing the fares? Clearly, when you see the performance of the second quarter, when the unit revenue increased around 1.3 for the network activity, it probably indicates that we have been able to transfer part of that cost to the customers, as some other airlines did. Difficult to give a precise number, I say. Is it half?
But it is possible. You will have to pass on this increase.
This is normal. When your cost of production increase because of such external factors, it is normal also to deal with the customers and to ask them to take a part of this cost increase in the fares or in the tariffs. And probably we did that partly during the second quarter, of course.
The French state still owns 14% stake in Air France-KLM. Accor Hotels decided to drop its plans to buy this stake. Was that bad news, and is there anyone else interested?
I think that concerning Accor, the most important is what does it mean for shareholders of Accor, what does that mean for shareholders of Air France-KLM. Concerning the shareholders of Accor, it's not really my job to comment, only to observe that the share price of Accor decreased after the announcement made by the Accor group that they were intending to take a stake into Air France-KLM. Concerning the Air France-KLM shareholders, there it is more my business by definition. We have made some study, we have discussed with Accor for years, and to be honest, if there is some possible cooperation, our analysis is that the impact on the Air France-KLM is relatively limited, which means that we are of course ready to work with Accor, as we did already for years, but we don't see any reason, based on this possible cooperation, to have Accor being the first shareholder of Air France-KLM.
Very, very quickly, is there any possibility to gain market share, or are you just postponing any expansion plans at the moment, given the context?
Look at what we give as a number to the market. We are growing between 2.5, 3.5 for the network activity in 2018. Transavia is even growing between 7 and 9%. So we continue to have the same ambition, which is to be present in the market and to develop the group.